Hello, Catherine Langman here, and welcome back to the Productpreneur Success Podcast. Welcome to the show if you are a new listener, and of course, welcome back to all of you long-time listeners. Fantastic to have you all here. Now, hands up if you've ever heard the phrase content is king when it comes to marketing your business or your brand, or of course, queen in my books. Now, when I think of being a queen, it makes me think that it should be the most very important one thing that stands out and kind of sits apart or above all of the rest, the most important thing, because there is only one queen usually, right? Unless, of course, you are walking up and down Oxford Street in Sydney. Now, obviously, having great content is really what can make or break your brand's marketing and advertising. We are visual creatures. I think there's a reason why road signs are images. It is the quickest way for us to communicate and understand messaging. Of course, I love wording as well. But, your content, whether it's paid or organic or, regardless of what platform it is on, is going to be the main way that your content is going to be the main way that your potential customers discover your brand for the first time. And as marketing messaging guru Donald Miller, who is the author of one of my all-time favorite marketing books, Building a Story Brand, says, our content must be really clear and memorable. If it is confusing, we are essentially requiring our customers to burn a lot of brain calories to figure out what we mean, and consumers just won't do that. They'll just go somewhere else where it's easier to understand. So the simplest way for us to communicate clearly with our audience is to make sure that our content tells a compelling story, whether it's in words and images or the combination of the two. And, however, if you're anything like me and many of my clients, figuring out what that should be is the hard part. So, it gets put in the too hard basket. It gets left to the last minute when we, then we end up just throwing something up on our page just for the sake of having something there. So if that's you, then no doubt you're probably feeling like content creation has become like the beast that needs constant feeding, or the teenage boy maybe that needs constant feeding. And, I guess we're all operating a content machine these days, and it can be super tempting to just whack up some images and some captions because you have to. But that last minute throw the spaghetti at the wall kind of approach and see what sticks, that method of content creation just does not work. It's stressful, it's overwhelming, and very rarely leads to stellar results. Whereas if you put a little thought and planning into what you're sharing and get a little bit of a process in place so that you know what steps you have to take on a regular basis, you are much more likely to start seeing your content driving somewhere between 10 to 30% of your website traffic and sales, depending, of course, on what stage of business you're at and how much you are also spending on advertising. So basically today on the show, what I'm here today to do is to help you make this a bit easier for you. And I'm going to dive in and go through 10 steps to really nailing your content plan. My goal here is to really take the overwhelm out of it, to really simplify it, and to help you just feel confident that you know what you need to do, and ultimately help you to get better results. Now, to help you with this, make sure you download my free content planning guide and template. You can get instant access to this tool. Just head to catherinelangman.com/content-planner, and I will make sure that link is on our podcast show notes page if you need to go and find it. Now, by the end of this episode, not only will you have a plan in place, you will also be able to start delegating some tasks to a VA or a marketing assistant and know that you will still get the quality and the results that you want with your content. So none of this, it'll just be quicker and easier if I do it myself, or I've tried outsourcing it and they just didn't, do it right, or any of that stuff. None of that. I'm going to make sure that you get the right system in place, the right plan in place, and that you can start to get some help and take this time-consuming task off your plate, but whilst still maintaining the quality and the results. All right, let's dive in. And I do have some notes with me today. So we're going to go through the 10 kind of steps and elements that you need to cover off in your plan, right? And the first one is your brand USP, your unique selling proposition. At the end of the day, you need to make sure that you keep your unique selling points for your brand really front and center, so that your content overall, really is emphasizing those right points and communicating them clearly with your ideal customers. By USP, unique selling proposition, basically that means what is it about your business, your brand, your products that sets yourself apart from your competitors? It is, it's really important to know what that is, because if you don't know what that is, your customers sure as hell won't. So we really need to make sure that we can be clear about that point of difference and that we can incorporate that as much as possible into our content. So step number one is to write that out, make sure that you have that documented and that you just keep it front and center, particularly when you are getting some help, so that other people, whether they're creating photographs, videos, or writing content for you, or even just executing on your plan, that they keep that front and center and make sure that that is always a part of your content. The next thing that you definitely need to keep front and center is your ideal customer avatar. So this means, a profile or a description of the ideal customer that buys from you. And I like to suggest that you describe this a little bit like a movie character, and really describe them not just in terms of their age or gender or demographics, all of that kind of statistical analysis type stuff. Also, you really want to understand, from a personality perspective, and what are their characteristics, and what kind of you definitely need to know what kind of content that they like to consume, so that you can make sure that you are creating that kind of content for them. It's also quite helpful, I think, to think about that ideal customer avatar. If you do describe it like a movie character, think about it, that character within that that movie universe. So sometimes I like to think about the avatar, the customer avatar, alongside the brand personality, which is my next point on my list here, as think of it like a movie universe. And of course, I'm thinking in terms of something like the Marvel universe, where it's like a whole what's the word? Like it's a whole universe that we all know it so well. There's so many movies, there's so many characters, but there's so many distinctive characteristics about this universe. So you can immediately place a Marvel movie when you see one. And so, you want to describe that customer avatar, but then also describe your brand personality, because it's really very important that your brand has its own personality, its own tone of voice, its own way of communicating. Is your brand cheeky, or is it serious, or in what way, shape, or form would your brand normally communicate with its audience? So, and I think if you're a solo entrepreneur, obviously I started out as a solo entrepreneur with my first business, and our brand often will just emulate our own, but eventually it needs to stand on its own 2 feet and have its own kind of personality and way of communicating. So it's useful to document this as well. Alongside that brand personality, you really want to also look at the brand look and feel. So this would be, to be official about it, getting a brand style guide. I like to have a style guide for the visual elements, but also a tone of voice one as well, so that what are the graphics, the colors, the fonts, and also the words that are in line with your branding and tone of voice. So really documenting that out. With a tone of voice guideline, it can be helpful to have examples of how your brand does communicate and how it doesn't, so that somebody else who might be coming in to help you eventually can reference those things. I know in my team, what we will typically do on the wording side of things is to have a list of go-to words and phrases that are within the brand tone of voice, and then some that don't exist there. You can also think about things like emojis, for instance. So some brands use a lot of emojis, some don't use any. Some brands like to use, perfect grammar and spelling and all those kinds of things. Others like to write like they're having a chat, very casual chat with a friend. So, almost like you're texting, that sort of thing. So find your happy medium, document what that is, and have some examples there that are kind of illustrate exactly what you want to represent and what you don't. All right, the next thing so those things are kind of like foundational elements, right? So you document that once probably, and you might revisit it every now and again. But from there, we're going to go more into the content side of things. So content, actually, let me just back up for 1 second. I forgot one note that I had there. So with the brand look and feel, obviously having a brand style guide and tone of voice style guide is useful. What's super helpful then in terms of application and execution with your content is to actually have some templates designed. Not hard to do. You can get some templates designed that you can use in your Canva account. And that's going to help the execution of things so that everything is uniform and on brand, and you don't end up with a whole lot of content that looks messy because there have been different colors and different fonts used. So highly, highly, highly recommend getting some templates designed for you so that this just makes it super, super easy to press ahead with all of your content creation. All right. The next part, though, in terms of content planning is your content pillars. So look, at the end of the day, you want to have a mix of engaging content and promotional content. You also need to have a mix of different types of content. So if we're talking social media content, it might be reels or stories or single image posts. And so, depending on when you're listening to this episode, there's probably going to be other types of content that are released and become popular. So at the end of the day, you do need to make sure that you are incorporating whatever the latest, most popular types of content are into your content creation efforts, simply because whatever's the latest, most popular type is going to get the best reach and engagement because the algorithms will favor it. But in terms of what the actual content is that you feature in those different types of content, this is where we need to have documented our content pillars. And I mean, ultimately you can have a number, but we recommend, or at least suggest, that you start with 3. And because this just keeps it super simple. And so the different types of content that I would be focusing on, number 1, I kind of put under the banner of edutainment. So this would be educational and entertaining type content. This is where, this will be the most engaging content. It's not salesy at all. It's the stuff that people will want to comment on and share and have conversations about. It's the kind of content that might emphasize or empathize rather with the real lives of your ideal customers. And I typically would suggest about 60% of your content fits under that content pillar. And then the second content pillar is really the kind of content that's going to establish trust, that is going to help alleviate any perceived risks that a potential customer might have from buying from you. And so this would be things like social proof and reviews, right? So user-generated content here, it works perfectly. So this is where you are getting your customers or content creators specifically to create content on your behalf. So they might be product demonstrations, they might be, unboxing videos, they might be, testimonial type videos, they might be videos showcasing your products and how they work to solve specific problems. They might be videos or images, still images as well, of course. Might be telling a bit of a story arc, like, here was my problem and I tried this, that, and the other to solve it, and it just never worked. And then I tried this particular product and look at this amazing result. So all of that kind of content is really going to help a potential customer who has already engaged with your brand. They might have engaged with pillar number 1 type content. They might have been looking at the products on your website, but they just need a little bit more confidence before they make a purchase decision. This kind of content is super helpful in that regard. And about 30% of content would be fitting under that content pillar. And then the third content pillar, this is the salesy stuff. So this is probably the stuff that I see a lot of brands starting out, 100% of their content is in this pillar. And of course, it's not going to work if you only put this kind of promotional content out, because other, potential customers, they don't know you from a bar of soap yet. They have no they haven't warmed up to you yet. They haven't decided that whatever it is that you sell is the solution to their problem. So you can't start with content pillar 3, but you definitely need to have it in your mix. You certainly don't want to go to the other end of the extreme, which I also see some brands do, where you are afraid to sell, too afraid to ask for the sale. So about 10% of your content needs to be more promotional. So whether it's, launching new products or promoting special offers or just literally featuring one of your products and asking for the sale. So, if that's the kind of content that it is and it's featuring one of your products, it's not necessarily new, it's not necessarily on sale, you still want to talk about your product value statement there, really communicate the value. By product value statement, this is where you are communicating the benefit of that product for the customer. So try not to focus on features. There's a good analogy that I'll often repeat. It's, people want a good night's sleep, they don't want a mattress. So just try and focus on the benefits that customers will experience, but definitely ask for the sale and give people a link so they know where to get it from. So those are your content pillars. And it's, what I find is super helpful is to have a bit of a grid that you know what types of content that you post on different days of the week, whether it's a reel, whether it's a story, whether it's an image post, and then, have your content pillars and map it out. So, across a month, 60% is your edutainment, 30% is your social proof, your user-generated content type stuff, and then 10% is your promotional, asking for the sales stuff. So that's the meat and the potatoes bit, right? Once you've done that, though, then you've got to try and get the biggest return on effort here, because let's face it, when it comes to creating content, it is quite a time suck. I think we all know that, right? So what I don't want you to do is to be creating completely separate content for every single channel. I mean, certainly, when you're really, really big and you've got a big team at your disposal, you can certainly do that. But most of us need to be getting the best return on effort. And that means, finding ways to get some leverage into this effort, right? So this means making sure that you are sharing this content out via multiple different channels. Now, whilst you do need to create the right kind of content that viewers expect or enjoy on different channels, so for instance, there will be certain types of content that work on TikTok that would never work on Facebook, right? Part of that, of course, is also knowing where your audience hangs out and just putting your effort there. But also, as much as possible, you want to share the same content over multiple channels. And this can mean, when you have your template set up that I mentioned earlier, you have templates set up that make it easy for you to iterate for those different channels, because the size graphic or video that you might use on TikTok or Instagram might be different to a still image version that you might use on Facebook or blog or email. But as much as possible, if you can distribute your content across multiple channels, you are going to, number one, get a better return on effort, but also it helps project a really cohesive message. And that is important when it comes to successful marketing. Customers need to see the same message repeated a few times before they're actually going to notice it and take action. So super helpful to have that multi-channel distribution strategy. The next thing that you need to work out in your planning is the frequency of posting. Of course, you could go the Gary Vaynerchuk route and be posting content multiple times a day. Personally, I'd rather poke my own eye out with a fork than do that. However, you definitely want to have enough content and high enough frequency of content being distributed that you actually do get some traction. You want to be gaining followers, you want to be building a warm audience, you want to be putting enough content and getting enough engagement out there that you're actually training these algorithms to find your audience as well. That doesn't just help on the organic front, it helps on the paid front as well. I can't tell you how much better your paid results will end up being. Your paid ad results will be so much better if you have a good, regular, consistent organic posting strategy as well. So, it might be a different frequency for the different channels that you're sharing content on, but just document whatever it is and stick to it, right? Then the next, second to last step in the process is, of course, going to be tracking your results. What are your top social posts? Track your engagement and reach metrics. You don't have to necessarily do it for 100% of your posts, but certainly note down the best ones. Because, over time, you want to gain a really good understanding of what works with both the visual content and the written word components. There might be certain kinds of angles or certain kinds of stories that you tell, or certain kinds of I don't know, like messages or promotions or whatever. Like, there will be certain pieces of content that just really take off and others that just don't. So you want to take learnings from them as much as possible. If there's any way that you can reuse some of your content down the track, you want to make sure that you can do that with the best pieces, the content that gets the best results. And you'll only know that if you are tracking the results. Okay. So, and of course, then also learn from the winning pieces so that you can emulate that with content over time. So it's that kind of combined learnings that you and longevity that you want to gain from recording the performance metrics. So once you've kind of documented all of that and get yourself into a little bit of a system around not just that planning side of things, so setting aside some time maybe once a month to actually plan out the month's calendar, but having a system in place with your templates so that it's just super easy to actually create the assets that you need, the visuals, the copy, all of that kind of stuff. And then once you've got that in place, you want to start delegating it and, getting some help. I would say that most startup brands, they would start, the brand owner is creating the content themselves, but they're doing everything else themselves too. But content, this marketing content, crucial element of building your brand, but it is incredibly time consuming, and it's not going to be a great use of your time forever to keep creating all of this content. So what you need to be able to do is get this plan in place and then get the system in place, and then train somebody else to be able to execute on that plan for you. Now, you don't just hand them the plan and say, go do it. Here's the templates, here's the plan, go and do it. You need to have a system of meetings and checking in and reviews in place as well, so that you can upskill them over time. And it will take a little bit of time for somebody else to be able to really channel your voice or channel the brand's voice, and to really feel super confident that they are executing on your plan to the level of quality that you have established and that you want to see ongoing, right? So, don't be surprised if they don't get it right straight out of the gate. And that doesn't mean that they're not good at it. You definitely want to give them some training and give them a little bit of time and have the regular check-ins for review and feedback. Now, with my marketing assistant, who does an amazing job producing this podcast and executing and implementing my content plan, we have a regular check-in with every week. So the plan is there. She knows what she has to do. She has all the steps, but she's always going to send stuff to me for review, and there might be a little bit here and there that I tweak still, but that's fine, because she's become a lot more proficient at executing on the plan through this process of feedback, right? So you need to make sure that is baked into the way that you work with an assistant, or whether it's a VA or a marketing assistant, or you've outsourced it to a freelancer, whoever you end up using, right? And so that process of iteration is super, super important. But, if you end up saving yourself 5 hours a week, imagine how much you can do with that time. So the idea being, as the brand owner, that you can free up that time. You've established the content plan and the system for getting that quality content out, and that it's landing with your audience because you've got that measurement process in place as well. But then you can free those hours up for yourself to start devoting that time in a more high impact way for yourself. So as the brand owner, the business owner, the best use of your time is going to be in what is the next step on that will have the highest impact on your growth. We can save that topic for another podcast. All right, so those are the 10 steps that we've just been through to planning and implementing a well-oiled content marketing system that will take the stress and overwhelm out of the job and help you generate consistent results in terms of traffic and sales. And actually, to illustrate this, I've included a screenshot on the podcast show notes page, just showing you a snapshot of some analytics to literally show you the impact of consistent, good quality, organic social media content can have on your traffic and sales. And what I really want to highlight here as well is that doing a great job of your organic social media content will also lift your results in your paid social media advertising, because like I said earlier, it helps to train the platform algorithms on finding your ideal audience. Plus, of course, you get to retarget all your warm, engaged audiences as well. Not to mention, for social media platforms to actually have a product to sell to advertisers, they need to have a product that people want to spend time on. And that's only, for users of these social media platforms, it's only going to be valuable for people to spend time on these platforms because there's quality content for them to consume, right? So we are, doing our bit, keeping ourselves in favor, and we get rewarded with our paid ad results improving as well. Additionally, like I said earlier, you can use a lot of your organic social media content in different ways as well, such as on your email, on your website, with your blogs and other content. And this helps you to improve your traffic and sales results from email and organic search as well. So the return on effort ends up being quite good. Now, for another related episode that will also help give you some ideas on how to increase your brand visibility and grow your organic social media audience, check out a recent episode that I recorded called 5 Ways to Increase Brand Visibility Using Organic Social Media. It's episode 159, which you can find at katherineLangman.com/episode-15 now. And why you might find that one useful is it just, we're talking in this episode about those 3 content pillars, but in terms of actually collecting some of that content, in particular the middle one, the 30% one, where it's all about social proof and user-generated content, some good ideas in that previous episode that might help you with that. All right, for now, that is it for today's episode. Hope you've enjoyed this one, and I would certainly love to hear from you either way. Now, if you do need help generating more website traffic and sales in your online store, just give me a shout. This is what I teach my coaching students, and it's what we do for clients in our agency every day. So I would love to invite you to book in a free e-commerce strategy session with us. We get to talk about, your goals and where you're feeling stuck, and, what it's going to take to help you launch, scale, or grow your business. So if you'd like to book that in, just head to katherineLangman.com/work-with-me. I'll, of course, include that link as well as all the other links that I've mentioned in this episode on the podcast show notes page as well. For now, I hope you have a fabulous rest of the day and week, and I look forward to being with you on the show again next week. Bye for now.